here, let us know. And we tried to make sure we set things up so it wasn't screaming at us this month. Betsy's here to make sure that doesn't happen.
All right.
She fixed me. Welcome to today's Selling As Is. My name is Leanne Balta, and Betsy and I are the organizers of this seminar. And how many of you have gotten a postcard or a phone call, or maybe somebody showed up at your door wanting to buy your house for cash? Yeah, well, me too, and I'm a realtor, so they don't let you know that, or there's no way of knowing that for them, but yeah, I get a lot of those calls. So today is not about talking anyone into anything. It's about sort of equipping you for those phone calls, if you take them, or the stranger that shows up at your door, and it's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So welcome. Today is about equipping you. We are going a little bit of housekeeping. I want to make sure that I introduce my partners in crime back here. So you've got Rock, who helps us with reverse mortgages, using our assets right now for things we need or preparing for the next move. We've got Mike back there with Elkin Finance. He helps us with all things Medicare related, so he is the guy that knows all about that. So. You've got Nikki with Harmony Moves. Nikki is Jonna's partner, like Betsy is to me, so it's great to have you today. We've got Sydney, who is Dave's other half. And let me go back to Nikki. Nikki is who I call when I want, or I need, clients and I need someone who will help us pack, help us sort, help us prepare for that next adventure. She's going to help us pack, she's going to move us, she's going to unpack us so that we're safe. So she's our go-to person for that. Sydney and Dave are like realtors for senior living. So they sit with us and just help us figure out the chaos. So thank you for that. Then we also have Kayla here that represents Jenny Rozelle, and a lot of you probably know Jenny from Indiana Estate and Elder Law, and she's a phenomenal partner. We always love it when she comes and talks to us as well. So, and then we have a couple of missing partners. You know, when they're not here, it's because they're looking. So we have Alex Perkins, which is our wealth advisor, and we have Janet Pillsbury from Centerwell. And I don't know if you know much about Centerwell, but Centerwell helps, they are senior practitioners that only see 8 to 10 Medicaid patients a day, Medicare patients a day. And I don't know about you, but having a doctor that specializes in gerontology, and I hope I just said that right, that there's just a lot of opportunity for preventative maintenance there. So Centerwell, you might check them out. Other housekeeping, we have the restrooms are a quick left and a long right, and on your chairs you have a notebook to take notes and to-do lists. Put your to-do list on there, because we also want to be taking action. So you might learn about something today that you want to take some action on. So notebooks and pens, an invitation to next month's seminar where we're going to bring some builders up and we're going to pick their brains on what that next place might look like. And then lastly, your blue seminars, responses, feedback forms. If you would please fill those out. Now, my friends that signed up last month that I didn't get signed, there is a box there where you can put your name and sign up for next month's seminar, so you don't have to worry about them. And thank you for those who do it. I forgot someone last month, so please forgive me. But do that. Betsy broke her ankle last month, and I can blame a lot of things on her because I've been pulling a little bit of double duty. But she's really, truly the other half of my brain and handles a lot of those details. So, all right. Any questions before we get started? I think that's the last of the housekeeping. I want to introduce you to our panelists today that see buying a home as is through different lenses. And we did it. See? She's the other half of my brain. She turned my slides for me. Thank you so much. So we have Annie Hamilton, which is also my boss. So make sure she feels the love today. You have Scott McLean, which I met last year, and he's an amazing guy that helps people. You'll get to learn a little bit more about him. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. And then you've got Trent, which is my favorite inspector. We also serve a lot in the community, so he's a really neat guy. I like, when Betsy and I do annual visits to our clients, we like to just sort of open their mind up to getting their homes inspected annually or biannually. It's like a health checkup. We go to the doctor annually, we check on our houses or our health. Why not check on our houses and see if there's anything going on that we don't know about? It gives us an opportunity, again, to be in control of how those repairs are made and when they were made. We've got time to get some estimates, so he's my guy for there. All right, why don't we just go ahead and let you introduce yourselves? Tell our guests, tell what you do. Scott, we'll go with you first.
Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Scott McLean. I'm with Senior Life Real Estate Solutions, and we help folks who are transitioning from home into senior living who have a house to sell. It's a very specialized niche, if you will, and my whole background has been in senior living for the past 30 years. I've served in various roles and positions in senior living organizations, helping folks with that transition from the provider standpoint. And during that time, sitting across the table with hundreds of clients, just seeing the stress on their face, trying to help make the right decision to get the right care and the right situation for their loved one. And on top of all the stress of that, they also are found with what to do with mom's house and all the stuff, right? Not only the house, but all the accumulation of 50 years of things that they have to now deal with, in addition to making sure mom is getting the right care and getting her transition. So I pivoted about 4 or 5 years ago into this new business venture, if you will, of specializing in helping families with that side of the transaction. So there are other professionals involved in guiding that process, but specifically with the real estate side, I'm both a licensed broker or realtor as well as an investor, and so we can bring to the table multiple perspectives and information and options to the table for hopefully to customize something that works best for the client.
Yeah. Scott and I are kind of the different ends of the spectrum. So what Betsy and I do is we work on where someone's going next, but they may want to go like a retail. They're looking to get a certain dollar maybe for that next venture, and so is Scott. It's just a different, I guess you'll learn more, but there's just a different way of selling, whether you sell to Scott or someone like myself, and it's just nice, I found, to have options, what works best for the individual. So I'm grateful for Scott. Miss Annie.
Hi, good morning everybody. Again, my name is Annie Hamilton with Century 21. I lead our operations and sales for our organization. I have been with our company for 23 years, and I started answering the phones at a real estate brokerage in high school, and I loved real estate. I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I wanted to help more behind the scenes operationally and support sales, and I recognize that, it is a sale, correct, but it is somebody's home. It's somebody's home where they raise their children, where life events happen, where somebody finds safety in their home, right? I was talking to a young lady a couple weeks ago, and she bought a condo about 5 years ago, and she said it was the first time I felt safe. When I bought my condo, she was in a situation where she needed to flee, and that is what home is, and that is in our core of everything that we do, of supporting and representing buyers and sellers. We have 9 offices within Indianapolis and the surrounding communities. We are a franchise of Century 21, but we are 100% locally owned. We want to make sure that we are supporting the communities that we serve. So I'm excited to be here today to kind of talk a little bit about the topic and any advice and questions that you might have that I can help with.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Trent,
Hello.
tell them who you are.
All right, so I'm Trent Pano with Housemaster Home Inspections. We kind of fit into this conversation and group with kind of the nitty gritty of home conditions and things that maybe have been overlooked for a period of time, some longer than others. We go into all sorts of homes and situations where people are wanting to naturally buy a home and find out what the conditions are there. But I think in this group, it's a thought of maybe getting ahead of the game and having what we call a pre-listing inspection. The same nuts and bolts of the process and what we're doing and what we're looking for. It's just being put at a different time period of maybe anticipating to list your home. Getting some of that information out in front of you and maybe out in front of your real estate agent to then guide and direct on what to do, when to do it, before that for sale sign goes in the yard. So we've been doing this, I say we, because it's not just myself. My parents are involved. We've got a team of inspectors here in central Indiana, and we've been doing home inspections for 15 years. So we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot from a lot of different age of homes, conditions of homes, or scenarios you either selling or buying. So unfortunately, I'm the one that typically brings the bearer of bad news or the reality, the reality of the situation, and to kind of help guide and direct some of these other service professionals. You got to know the facts and you got to know what you're looking at if that home sale is helping you leverage into something else.
So I asked Trent to come today because when we're selling our homes, it's just important for us as sellers to understand what the buyers are looking for and what they're being told and what they're learning. So Trent is really good at bringing that perspective. We'll be good at bringing that perspective. But I also like how Trent and his guys, they really strive to educate their buyers without scaring them off. So it's just something I've always appreciated about Trent. All right, so as we get started, I did pull some little bit of stats about selling your home as is, and what I kind of learned, and this is where I was talking to you earlier, Scott, present company excluded. Most people selling their homes as is don't really understand necessarily what as is means today, but they also, if they're taking the first unsolicited cash offer for their home, it's that random phone call you're getting or the sign that says we buy homes, you're often leaving some money on the table. And that's okay if they're offering something else that works for you. But I thought that was interesting. That first unsolicited offer is often leaving money on the table. So we're just gonna keep that in mind as we go through this conversation. We're gonna start with Miss Annie. Annie, who defines as is?
Well, I think that's we can have a very long conversation about as is, but so in real estate terms, if I were to be listing somebody's home and we are acknowledging that it's as is, we are making that known to the buyer. And it's the seller's decision if they want to sell the home as is. So it's a term, it's also in our listing contracts that you can identify that you're gonna be selling it as is. And in the purchase agreement, when a buyer is writing an offer. Now, just because you decide to sell your home as is, if a buyer can still ask, can I please have a home inspection? That would be your decision, right? It's all about negotiation. What I have found is when a home is listed as is, so let's just play this scenario. If you're online and you're on Century 21's website or Zillow or Realtor.com and you're perusing homes and it says sold as is, what is your impression when you read that?
There's something wrong with it.
There's something wrong with it. Exactly. It's like, what's happening there? It adds curiosity that doesn't need to be there, in my opinion. And it could be all done with having a pre-inspection, disclosing those items. And I understand that there's a reason to sell as is. But am I answering your
You are,
question?
it's just about knowing what they're gonna run into, that's.
Yeah, it's about the risk. Are you willing, as a seller, wanting to put your home as is, knowing it's gonna add Judy looking online and saying, there's something wrong with that home. It might increase your home being on the market longer and not getting what your home value would be if the repairs were done. So, yes, Judy?
Question on that, isn't there some kind of, like, if you're selling your home, isn't there some kind of a policy that you can buy assuring that if anything happens within a year, this repair will be covered, that repair? If you do that and you have one of those, do you have to have an inspection to get that insurance?
So that's a home warranty.
Yeah, right.
And they're good for 12 months, but it's not good for everything. If something is, some policies will state if something was already wrong with the home and the seller knew about it, it may not be covered. So you really have to read that policy in great detail to understand what it covers and what it doesn't cover. But that's a great question.
So selling as is more of a framework. It's starting to sort of bridge that conversation between what the seller wants and then letting them know what the buyers are gonna be looking for, and knowing that selling as is could actually make a buyer wanna look even more deeply into why it's being sold as is. Scott, I'd like to ask you, what do you think about as is? So what do cash buyers, as a cash buyer, as an investor, what do you mean by as is?
Well, typically, when we make an offer to buy a house as is for cash, as an investor, it's usually literally as is. So, in other words, not only are we not going to ask for any repairs, but you don't even have to clean it out or clean it up. So it's literally as is. It's what we call the easy button.
You don't pre-inspect to find out what you're buying as is?
That will be part of his process.
Yes, we do in various fashions. Some may bring in a third-party inspector. Others, like sometimes we'll just bring in our contractor who is experienced enough to walk a house and understand what's working, what's not working, what repairs are gonna need to be made, and so we formulate that into our offer.
Okay.
Yeah, and account for that. So generally, when you're selling it through a realtor as is, on the market, you're probably going to clean it out and clean it up at the very least, am I right?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
It'd be nice.
Yeah, and some people are in a position of distress, whether, again, in some cases where they're trying to, juggle a million things to help their loved one in finding the right place for their care, and there's family dynamics, and or the house is in great distress. Selling, I like to say, selling as is for cash to an investor can be, it's obviously not the best solution for every situation, but it can be a good solution for a situation where either the homeowner is in distress or the house is in distress, or sometimes both.
Or the family's in distress.
Or the
yeah.
family's in distress and they don't want to or cannot go through some of the process that's necessary to get maximum dollars for it by selling it on the market, such as the cleaning out, the cleaning up, the repairs, and all of the showings and inspections, all of the steps that are necessary in a normal, conventional real estate transaction.
Do you ever run into issues where, and I don't know if this would apply or not, a homeowners association, when you say someone comes in and maybe an investor is looking to buy your house, and I'm thinking of investors like, they go out and buy these apartment buildings and they don't take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever run into issues with homeowners associations where a homeowner is not allowed to do that? That they have to sell their house to somebody who's going to actually come and live in it? I know in ours, there's limitations as what you can do.
Yes, more and more homeowners associations and condo associations are putting in regulations or rules against renting, for example. Short-term rentals, for example, like the Airbnb, are being more and more restricted in neighborhoods and HOAs. But also traditional long-term rentals are being at least capped, sometimes at a certain percentage of the homes in the neighborhood, and some are just outright banning them altogether.
But Scott's company is literally buying those distressed, again, it doesn't have to, house, family, individual, and it's sort of a distressed situation to make it easier on them. But he's not buying it to rent, he's buying it to bring up to market standards and then selling. So
yeah, some
an
investors,
HOA may actually want him to come in and improve that property and get top dollar.
yeah, so generally we're looked at as the hero sometimes in in bringing a distressed home back to life and bringing in a new homeowner, so that generally gives us some attaboys from the neighborhood.
And so Betsy and I try to reduce the overwhelm to transitioning, but our clients usually have the means to, and the support systems in place to make those transitions and bring the property up to its highest and best value. That there's always a need for both of us out there. I wanted to ask you, Scott, what's sort of the first thing that gets discounted with a cash offer? What are you kind of looking at?
Well, I like to use the analogy of selling your car. So you could sell your car for top dollar, first of all, if you just did it by yourself, by cleaning it up, changing the oil, making any repairs that are needed, maybe some new tires, and you can probably sell it, on the market, if you will, and probably get the most money for that by doing that. Why doesn't everybody do that?
Money, expensive.
Time.
Energy?
It's a hassle, right?
It's a hassle.
And so, the easier options would be to trade it in on a new car, right? And is the dealer gonna give you top dollar for it?
No.
No. Why?
Because you didn't take care of it, they can't resell it.
Yeah,
They have to fix it up.
they're a business, they're not gonna just, use it to drive. Their business model is to take it and, buy it from you at a discount in order to make those repairs and clean it up, fix it up, and then sell it for hopefully a profit, right? So if you think of like businesses like CarMax that are very popular, and they make it quick and easy, don't they? But the trade-off for having that speed and convenience is that you're gonna have to sell it at a discount, usually about 20%. and then they're gonna do their thing and resell it on the market. So similarly, we're kind of that CarMax for home sellers, where in exchange for convenience, speed, and certainty meaning it's, you know what the price is gonna be, you know it's gonna, the timetable is quick, and there's fewer hoops to jump through. In exchange for those benefits, you're gonna have to swallow a bit of a discount. And so that's kind of the trade-off.
That's
if that
perfect,
helps.
thank you. It's nice to have another option, an alternative, so thank you for talking about that. Trent, any stories of no inspections? I mean,
No inspections on the seller side?
yeah, like, do you, like, I know you socialize and you volunteer with a lot of realtors, so
Yeah.
any horror stories about a home that did not have an inspection?
Well, yeah, there's plenty out there, but I think, to give some guidance, it's on all these conversations, you gotta know where your starting point is, what you're working with specifically. I think a lot of that kind of starts in that real estate agent conversation that, the one that got us here today was Leanne and the real estate arm of it, to know, is it beneficial to go kind of this route or that route, what the pre-inspection concept looks like and the benefits of that, because every house is very different. There's a lot of houses that, make sense. You don't need a pre-listing inspection. You can move on. Everything's kind of right there in front of you, whether it's age or maintenance, upkeep, things like that. Other homes on the other side of the spectrum then need a little bit more of the services and the hand-holding. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation starts to show those worst-case conditions of not having inspections and all those things that we tend to uncover in the pressure point of a sale transaction. And I think we could do a lot of people a better justice by encouraging those pre-listing inspections. But it's the surprises of you've lived there for 10, 15, 20 plus more years, and how many times have you been in the crawl space or the attic or on the roof or done a full, thorough, opening of windows and things. So the horror stories usually fall into the unknown areas. Those are the ones that the crawl spaces, the cellar basements, the attic spaces, for sure. But then also in some of your mechanicals, if you're not one to have a HVAC technician service and maintain your unit every year or two, and you've let that go for 14, 15, 16 years, then, that's when we do find the dead critters in your furnace and, furnace filters that just are non-existent. The framework is there, but the filter has been dissipated into your breathing air. So, yeah, it's something as far as just bringing that information to the forefront. And if you're not relying on some of the professional individuals in the room and service companies that try to get you to the highest finish line, that's the goal, is to maximize your sale, maximize that asset that you have. And some of it is trying to go back and say, well, I've not done the things that I should be doing for 20 years. Now we're gonna have to face that and either disclose it. So the as-is conversation, in our world, most of those homes being sold as-is still have a buyer's inspection. And even though it's as-is, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't just decide to walk away and not buy your home. There's all those kind of fall-through questions of, you've gone through that whole process and the emotions of it, and now for the first time you're sending someone into that crawl space or into the unknowns, and then you're gonna have to deal with it at that time. So
Are there any what's the biggest thing that surprises buyers when you're working with them?
The length of the list, the length of the report, which is the list, that is a big surprise. I think some of it is they thought or they assumed they knew what they were looking at, up until you get through the 2.5 to 3 hour inspection, and then they go, that's not what I thought this was. We go in and look at homes in a different way. And so I think maybe the deferred maintenance conversation comes up, but that ticket dollar amount of repair gets big as you add that list. And I think for us in this room, it's trying to think about that sometimes a couple years, 3 years before you're even in a position to engage with a realtor or an investment buyer or the next step in your process. We learned in our family with my wife's father, nothing was thought about. Nothing at all was thought about. And then we try to go scramble and make the best of it. And how many years do you need to get all your ducks in a row? Some houses maybe a lot more time than others, but that's why I think you rely on a real estate professional, because they've seen all the different scenarios.
Yeah, it's that conversation about your goal. You mentioned goal, like some people's goals are to sell for highest investment value. That is a goal. It's just, there are different goals. So the easy button,
Yeah.
but it is just about informing yourselves. Now there's another side to getting a pre-home inspection, and if something comes up as a seller, you need to disclose that. If you're finding it. So that is why some people choose not to have a pre-inspection, because then you do need to disclose it or fix it. We'll go with Judy and then.
Just a quick question,
yeah.
how do you charge?
Our inspections are square foot based.
Oh.
So a square footage number on the overall size is how we kind of fit in those
Thank you.
prices.
Okay, just
Judy,
wondering.
you want
Do you have any, first of all, it's kind of hard to decide how to buy an inspector, how to get an inspector.
Mhm.
If you get an inspector and, in good faith, and a year later, you found out that because of the inspection was being bad, the house has mold because the dryer was venting into a crawl space that had no venting outside. I mean, it was crazy. And it was later on, that happened to my grandson. What's your recourse on something like that, or is there?
The inspection company would have some type of support or guarantee, that a time frame after that inspection that they would maybe be responsible for. Inspections have state order agreements and signed contracts, so there's always the recourse if it's that extreme and obvious miss. Small claims court, is the recourse for that buyer.
In their case,
that's-
I don't think it would work, cause the small claims would have been, his claim was larger, he had to take out floors. I mean, there was mold, a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah,
mold.
so like a physical, it's not necessarily a one and done.
Yeah.
It could change over time.
How do you find it? I mean, like, I know you are, but is there a way people can find a reputable inspector? I mean,
The quick and easy answer is your online research, right? Your Google, and kind of see what's
How they're rated.
what other people are saying about them.
Is there an organization that,
Not necessarily, other than your BBB and Angie's List and that kind of stuff, but that's a different view of it all. I think I will easily go back to the real estate conversation. Is that's the value I feel is given from a real estate agent, professional, Century 21 most likely, but it's relying on them because that's their profession of weeding through the hundreds and hundreds of all of us providers to then narrow in on what their short list is to have that conversation with you as their client. I hope I'm on their short list, cross country hopes they're on the short list, and that's the natural game that the industry is involved with. But, there's a lot of variables to what your conversation has to do with. Home inspections are a general checkup. It is you're going to your annual family doctor and physician to then get directed and rerouted from there into the specialties of contractors, repairs, handyman, all those wonderful things. But that's where there's a lot that goes on into the process of getting to that closing table. And yes, some stories don't end as well as others, but I think that's where understanding where you're at and with your home, because a lot of us, me included, that home is our leverage point for equity or the next step, or what can I do over here and help out over there.
Yeah.
And so the home is that core piece of it for a lot of us.
One of our biggest assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Let's switch gears, not really switch gears, we're talking a lot about repairs, but I wanna ask, Miss Annie, in your opinion, because you've got myself here and you've got Scott here,
Yeah.
when does it make sense to sell a home with or without repairs?
It goes back to what is the end goal, and I'll just use this real life example. So my mom and my aunt were executors of my grandparents' estate. And their goal was they wanted to maximize the dollar of the home. But it took them 3 years to clean out the house because there was such attachment to everything in the home, right? It was a home that they grew up in. They didn't want to change anything. They were there every weekend for 3 years going through things. There was a lot, because my grandfather was an antique collector of radios and things. So there was a lot there, I'll give them credit for that. But they had the time and they wanted to go through those things. Other families may not have the time or the energy, right? So I think it comes down to what is the goal of the family? What is the goal of the owner of the home? Do we have to maximize the value of the home to be able to transition to whatever that next step is? If it's retiring and moving to Florida, is it wherever that is? I think it's really sitting down and determining what is the financial goals, and if the time is higher than the financial goal, then an investor is a perfect opportunity to do say as is and move it forward, because you got to balance that time versus financial. And I was reading a couple of months ago, and I thought it would be really important to share today, and I wrote notes, so give me a little grace. So I'm a handwriter, piece of paper, pen gal. So 40% of US owned homes that are occupied, they're not owned, they're not rented out. The person that owns it lives in the home. 40% of homes, they're 100% paid off, or they were paid by cash. So that is 4 out of 10 homes, there's no mortgages. So all of the equity and savings oftentimes is in the home. And understanding that piece is really important in determining which path you go. I've seen it where when a home goes on the market to the public, there's a higher chance, high probability that the home is gonna sell greater than if you do something off market or with an investor. But it is that balance of, and I know how difficult it is to get contractors out to a home, right? It's a full-time job, a lot of times managing any changes and those things. So it is the difference, what is the goal? Now, I couldn't believe my aunt and mom did that for as long as they did, but for them, the financial piece was more important than their time. Does that help put things, and going back to the inspector, I learned this a long time ago. Let the facts get in the way of a good story. And having a home inspection before you go on the market allows you to have the facts versus what we tell ourselves of what is going on in that attic that we kind of heard something down there that we prefer to have blinders on, right? We prefer not to know. Let the facts guide you, because it's an emotional decision. So I think sometimes if we stick to the facts, the journey to wherever path you wanna take becomes easier for you and the family, in those decisions.
Well said, thank you so much for that. Mr. Scott, how do you evaluate, and that was a question that came up, I wanted to dig into it just a little bit more. How investors evaluate repairs versus, maybe a buyer making those repairs?
Sure, so a buyer making repairs, usually their primary goal is what's the outcome that we want for ourselves, because we're going to be living there. You know, what might we enjoy for our lifestyle and our family situation, kids, no kids, you know, retired, not retired, you know, what are some of the, not only the repairs, but updates that they may wish to have for the enjoyment of their home, even when it comes to finishes and colors and, you know, decorations and things like that. They wanna make it customized to their likes and their preferences. An investor, on the other hand, they're looking toward the end buyer, like, so when we look at what needs to be repaired and what updates and what finishes we want to put into a house, we're thinking, how do we maximize the purchase price on the back end to a what we call a retail buyer? And what are the trends, what's popular, so just to get your head around that. So I'm sure most of you have seen some of the fixer-upper TV shows, but we like to say they've ruined they've definitely changed the expectations
Yes.
for today's buyer, where, you know, now everyone is, you know, demanding open concept and granite countertops and, you know, all the bells and whistles that you see on these TV shows. And so the buyers have been influenced by those TV shows, and so that requires us to adjust our expectations of what needs to go into the house to give us the best chance of, you know, getting the highest dollar on the back end when we go to sell it at the back end.
That's good, that's good. Which brings us to market value. So, Ms. Annie, will you explain to us what is market value?
So market value, you can look at it a couple different ways, but it's truly what a buyer is willing to pay for the home. Now you can back into that to get an estimate by looking at homes that have sold within 30, 60, 90 days of likeness. You would never compare a 2-story home to a home that is a 1 level. So we can back into what we believe a buyer would be willing to pay. And we also have to put into consideration, what is the urgency? Is the urgency to sell the home within a couple of weeks? Or do we have a longer time? And that will determine the pricing. But it's what a buyer is willing to pay and offer is what market value is.
That's good.
Is it considered a homeowner's, they say it's a buyer's market, but right now it's a homeowner's market?
It depends on the market area.
Oh, the area, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are like higher demand areas and lesser demand areas, and so your expert in that area is gonna show you what homes are selling, what they're looking like on the inside, and what they're looking like on the inside, what they're selling, what you're competing with, all of that goes into that value. Yeah. Sorry.
You're fine. So I just, if we just look at Boone County itself, I just brought a couple stats. Remember, let the facts get in the way of the story that we tell ourselves. But it really is specific to your neighborhood, right? What's happening in Zionsville is completely different than what's happening in Bloomington, Indiana, right? With the IU football, it's amazing how many people want to buy investment properties in Bloomington.
Right?
Right, and how many investors were selling, now they're not, because they're like, I can rent this for IU football games and get really high dollars. So so it depends on the market. So if we look at just, this is Boone County, so Boone, the whole county. So when we compare year over year, inventory, homes on the market are up 44% over last year at this time,
Wow.
okay? Days on market, so that's the time that is at 45 days, which is up 18% year over year. Now that's the whole county, right? Depending on where you live, your neighborhood might not have very many homes on the market, and days on market might be 2 days, right? So it's really important when you're looking at data or you're speaking with somebody to really zero in on your specific neighborhood, or if you have acreage, comparing apples to apples, so you really have the facts to be able to guide you of what your specific area is doing at that, and that's a moment in time, right? We can look at leading indicators, right, of what's happening today could cause what might happen in 90 days, but it's all about supply and demand. If a specific neighborhood doesn't turn over very often and a home goes on the market, I would bet that home is gonna sell very quickly. There's probably a lot of people that wanna move into that neighborhood.
We are often gauging what is that supply and what does the demand look like for a specific area. So there's a lot of analyzing going on to see whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market in that particular area. That's good. You know, the headlines, right? We're always looking at those headlines. It's now a buyer's market. Well, yeah, you really have to look into what's going
How
on
often
in
do you
your area.
run into a market like we had last year though, where, you know, people were fighting over buying the house before it ever went on the market, paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 off over? How often does that happen in reality?
That feels like last year, but it was actually more like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, our
but
neighborhood-
but our sellers still
Ours is
think it's
still
last
doing
year.
that in our neighborhood. I mean, it's
See,
great.
Yes.
you must be in one of those high demand
Yes.
areas.
You know, it's a little tiny neighborhood, but it's popular, but I'm just curious, does that happen very often, that it gets been as, I mean, wild as it has
And
been?
now, you know, back in 2019 and 20, I mean, that was, you know, 50 offers on homes.
Yeah.
That isn't happening across the board like it used to. Buyers are asking for home inspections now. Previously, they were waiving them, right?
And we were not encouraging that, just so you know.
We had a long conversation, because if you think about, you know, a buyer buying, waiving inspection is much different than, you know, Scott's team buying a home and waiving inspection, right? You have first-time home buyers that may not be able to afford a new furnace, right? And to guide a buyer, it was hard during that time because they weren't winning homes when you had the inspection in it, right? And it was hard. VA buyers were not getting offers accepted, because it's just, so I feel like right now we're in a much better place that allows buyers at any type of financing to compete and still have the same inspection, and knowing what they're buying is much different today than it was
It was
several years
very
ago.
stressful, I just want you to know, it was very, very stressful, and we were looking for ways to protect our buyers. Like, instead of waiving inspection, we might say, we won't ask for anything less than $2,500. There were ways of navigating that, during those times, but they were very stressful times for us as realtors, just, yeah. Time, for them too, obviously, but it was stressful.
Sellers were loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you weigh the issue of, say you have, you have an inspection and they say that you need a new furnace or whatever they need, and that there's a value of $5,000. Do you find, many people will wanna take $5,000 off the cost of the house and give the money to the buyer and let them take care of it, or is it more beneficial for you to make that investment and take care of it?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the loan, right? If it's a cash buyer, that buyer probably will say, just take it off of the sale price and I will take care of it after closing. But if it's a buyer that is getting an FHA or conventional loan, you know, lenders, you know, Rock's back there, he knows the rules, right? Of those need to be completed before closing, is our recommendation, just so then we know everything is good from the house perspective and from the lender perspective.
And just to add, it's how much you're trusting the other side of the transaction, as far as, do you want them to do it, or do you want to do it and control the end product of that?
This is where I say it works very well when everybody plays nicely in the sandbox.
When it doesn't, then you want, one of the ones that will catch people is radon systems, radon mitigation systems, okay? It's a very high negotiable item because it's a health risk, it's a safety risk. They're typically pretty easy to install. But the seller who's getting ready to move out of that house doesn't necessarily really care where that pipe is gonna go. In the basement or on the outside of the house, where the fan's gonna go, where all the logistics of that, because that's in their rear view mirror. The buyer comes in and goes, man, I really wish I could have been a little bit more specific on where that pipe and where they drilled into the foundation or what have you. And so that conversation of who does the repair, it's all a part of that inspection response and negotiation with your agent to say, I don't know if I trust them, is it a contractor that's gonna get involved, or is it a concessions at closing that then you would be able to choose the contractor and be a little bit more involved in the install.
Yeah, thanks, great. I wanted to ask Scott, what is red flags? Okay, red flags and offers that are too easy. Because we do see the signs, maybe more in the Indianapolis area, that we buy, and they go in and they make an offer, maybe it's a verbal offer, and then when it gets down to it, the person like yourself who's really it's different. They start sort of nickel diming. So what about those kind of offers? Too easy offers.
Yeah, so I like to say, just like any profession, there are good players and bad players. And so let the buyer beware. You need to do your due diligence and make sure that you're working with a reputable organization. And you can do that through doing searches, online searches. Are they local? Do they have any sort of accountability through what is it, Better Business Bureau, or are they being recommended by somebody you know and trust, or are they just out of the blue? So kind of like with those stacks of postcards, I always say, that's great that there's a lot of attention, a lot of eagerness to buy your house, but how do you know which one of those you can trust and which ones you can't? So some of the red flags would be, they're not willing to put a very large earnest money deposit down. That's a red flag that they may not be serious, or they're just looking for an easy way out. So the more skin in the game they have by putting in, I think traditionally it's like 1%,
Yep.
in that range. So if they're only willing to put $50, down with their offer, then that's a little bit of a red flag. Likewise, inspection period. If they give an extended inspection period, then chances are they're what's called a wholesaler, where they're not intending to buy it themselves. They're wanting to put it under contract and then sell that contract to a third party or a third party investor for a fee. And if they don't find one in that time frame, then the inspection contingents, or I'm sorry, the inspection time frame, they can walk away and not lose anything. So those are a few of the things you want to be cautious about.
And you do want to be careful of that someone coming in and writing a contract, and then on the backside they're kind of hustling, trying to find a buyer for that contract.
Yeah.
What's a good inspection period? And what's a typical,
Usually
Yeah.
10 to 14
10 to
days
14
after
days.
writing.
and you can get
contract.
an inspector usually that easy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Trent's got a nice online scheduling system, so. I like, buyers can get in there and schedule cause it is the buyer's opportunity during that inspection, 3 or 4 hours of the house to learn about the house. I always make sure that my sellers keep their house as nice as condition at that time during that inspection, so they can stay in love with the house.
So just to add on to that, so you don't have to have a certain, certification or licensure to be a cash investor. However, if you work with an investor who is also a licensed broker or realtor, as one myself, we have, even though we're not functioning as your realtor, we have to disclose that and make sure you understand that we're functioning, we're wearing our investor cap and not our realtor cap at the time. But as a licensed realtor, we're held to a higher standard of ethics and standards of doing business. And so that's another question that you can ask of anyone who's approaching you. Are you local? Do you have other affiliations or connections, recommendations?
I was gonna say recommendations. Do you have a list of people that I can call and check, and any of us should have that,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, do they have an online presence? If they don't, then there's less you can be confident of.
Yeah. Although online websites that don't have a lot of content, blogs, information, because it's pretty easy to set up a website these days, so just, always being careful about that too, so thank you for the red flags. Amy, I forgot to ask you, what are some of the things buyers don't really budget for, sellers don't really budget for when they're selling as is? I've got on the market for 300,000, I'm on as is, am I gonna get 300,000?
Yeah, it's going to come, because if you're selling it as is, you're telling that buyer, I'm not willing to make any repairs. But where you will see the impact is the offer from the buyer. So that is what you need to be open to and balance. Is it worth doing that $5,000 repair to get the higher value of the home? So it's gonna come down to your equity is where you'll feel it.
And I guess one last question for Amy, is who works for the seller and who does not work for the seller?
So when you work with a real estate agent, which I'm assuming that you're here because you are a homeowner, so you probably purchased your home, you might have had representation from a real estate agent. Just like we were talking about, we have to follow the code of ethics and our kind of framework of being a realtor. But there's a listing contract that outlines our responsibilities to the seller and what, a seller communicates with us. That is not something that we communicate with the buyer's agent. For example, if Nancy, you're just in eyesight, so if Nancy tells me that, we're willing to take our bottom dollar number, that is something that a real estate agent should never share to the other side. Unless Nancy says, Annie, please tell all the buyers out there that I'm willing to pay a lower price, which I doubt Nancy would ever do that, right? But a lot of times things come up in conversations because it's high emotion, right? And you have the pressure of you want to sell the home. So those conversations stay between you're representing. And if by any chance your listing agent is going to bring a buyer has somebody that wants to buy your home, there's clear rules and guidelines of how that representation works. So you can feel confident when you are signing a listing contract. We have policies and procedures, and all those things are outlined of how that communication and what information. Now, if Nancy, she would never say this, Annie, there's mold in the basement, but don't tell anybody. That is something that we would have to talk to Nancy and say, Nancy, we do have to disclose that. That is something that we are gonna have to disclose, to any potential buyer. So we're able to navigate that, and thank you, were just an eyesight, Nancy. You have a great smile, so I thought I would use you as an example.
That's awesome.
Hopefully that was helpful. And if you do get a postcard, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And I think sometimes those are sent and people are taken advantage of. And really make sure that you're doing your due diligence, seeking advice, so then you are not taking it, because there are people out there, sadly, that will. And there are and that's what tarnishes our reputations and what we do to serve our communities. So make sure that any professional real estate agent will welcome, or any of us would welcome you to say, can you please give me a reference? Can you please provide me your real estate license or confirmation? If you are a true professional, you're not going to blink an eye at that, because that is showing that trust building in that relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, we love those phone calls. Absolutely. I'm getting ready to turn this back over to you in just a moment. I have just one more. Is there one piece of advice that I did not ask you that you would like to share? And then I'm going to turn it over to you.
I think I just said it.
I
That was my closing.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to the guys.
I would just say, and I like to lead with this with my clients when I first get introduced, is that there's no one size fits all solution for selling your home. And so explore and get educated on your options, and try to understand the pros and cons of different strategies, different options, and get help from a professional. And before you make your decision, try not to rush and to jump into something without having the facts and without having the information.
I think it's just getting an early jump on whatever your process is and wherever you fit into this is. Don't wait until the year of or months up to needing to make a decision because there's something forcing you to. Try to be in the driver's seat of that and give yourself plenty of time to get through that process to then maximize what your goal is at the end.
You're here, you're getting ready to ask the questions, so you're already kind of taking that proactive approach to getting the information. I think you've heard me talk about prior panelists. Make your plans. Start to formulate your plans and share that with your family, even the whys, and ideally you would actually get it in writing. So, and I think I speak for most of us, we plan to age in place as long as possible. And so the planning is just what if, and have that plan, and then communicating that plan is my challenge to all of us. We come here and start writing out those plans. So, just a shout out to Indian Estate and Elder Law is a great place to start, because they ask you those questions. They sort of draw that out of you and help you think through some of those really important questions. And now it's your turn to ask questions.
I just have a question, is if I'm downsizing and I'm buying another house, what would a contract look like with the realtor? Am I paying the realtor money? Do I expect to use that realtor for so many months? Would that be in your contract? And what is an average, what would a contract look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you're interviewing, first of
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And all terms of the listing contract or the buyer agency agreement is all negotiable. Every real estate agent has their own of what they offer during their period. So a listing, there would be two separate contracts. a listing contract that would outline what you would be willing to, what you're gonna list the price for, the home for, and the commission that is negotiated between you and the real estate agent. Then if you were to purchase, my recommendation, use the same real estate agent, because then it's just in sync, right? You would have a buyer agency agreement that would be negotiable in real estate commission and the terms. So it could be a 3-month, 6-month, just depending on that piece, but there's always, if you're unsatisfied or unhappy, there is termination, clauses in those agreements. Is that helpful, Kim?
And do ask your realtor about that, because there are some organizations that have earlier, or I guess easier termination clauses than others. Century 21 happens to believe, in not holding anybody hostage, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kim, if you weren't happy with one of our 440 real estate agents that we have, we're not gonna say, no, Kim, you absolutely, now I hope that never happens, right? But we just believe that it's a relationship and it's a trust building relationship.
And again, even if you're not selling this year or next year, but it's 3 years or, just having a conversation, start your interviewing process early.
I've been chomping at the bit.
Oh, I'm sorry, babe, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So, as a reverse mortgage specialist, I deal with all this. About 50% of my business is purchase business, which is against the norm. In our world, normally that's 6%. I love the purchase part of this. So often, people my age and older, they do not want to deal with the deferred maintenance. They want a home that better fits them in their lifestyle. As I'm listening to the panel talk, I'm excited about what Trent brings to the table. To kind of touch what Annie's talking about, with Trent, facts are friendly. He's not worried about the value of your house. This works, this doesn't, this needs to be repaired. Highly encourage you, just as you do your financial planning so that you don't leave your heirs with issues, do the same thing with real estate. Even if you're not planning on moving right now, and if you're thinking, hey, when I pass, I don't want to leave this issue to my kids, do that home inspection now. If you're an adult child of aging parents, I'm one of those. I will tell you, my mom lies to me. She does. I know she's lying. I'll call her out. She's like, what are you gonna do? It's good now to have that home inspection done to find out, hey, is there some issue? Is there some safety hazard that I should be taking care of now? Even if my mother has no intentions of leaving, you should do that. One of the things that was not mentioned up there was the emotional aspect, and Annie touched upon that, where her parents or family members held on to this house for 3 years. What she didn't talk about was the holding on to that cost. Insurance still needs to be paid. Taxes still need to be paid. Wait for it. 3 years of stuff might be breaking. So if you've got someone like Scott that comes in with this offer and people are thinking, hey, this is a low offer. Okay, wait a second. You can keep holding on for that other offer, but you still have to, if it's your parents or somebody else or even you still have to pay for stuff. It may not be such a low offer. Or if you're an adult, a child, man, I'm living in Florida and I gotta take care of this property and someone's gotta mow the yard. I just wanna get rid of it. There is another cost saving there. There's an emotional thing. It's a stress thing. So many people don't understand stress. If you're thinking about selling and now you have these other issues, especially what I do, people think they have to pay 100% down to not have a mortgage payment. One of the things I do is say you don't have to do that. Maybe you can sell it for less, just be done with it. You're gonna feel better and I can help you not have a mortgage payment. This other thing, they're like, oh, that felt better. And to your point, there's just in the US, just seniors, and the new stat came out, $14.7 trillion of home equity is what people my age and older are sitting on. Why not use that to buy a better home, or why not use it to fix up your home while you're in it?
Yeah.
Average amount of equity is $250,000. That'll get you a new home. It may not be a $250,000 home, it might be a $400,000 home, or it might help you have a better lifestyle with a home that you had Trent come in to take a look at to make sure it was okay. Stress, highly encourage you to have a home inspection for you or for your parents. And also, because I have this going on right now, talk to the real estate agent. One of my clients I'm gonna have to deal with today, They're worried about, do I put $15,000 into the home or do I sell it as is? They're asking me, I'm like, I don't know. Talk to your real estate agent. You might be better off just selling it, because you might spend all this money and not get that return on it. Talk to the real estate professionals.
We do have a friend that's usually here, that's at home right now, replacing her HVAC system. And I know she wants to sell, and it's gonna be great that has a new HVAC system, but she might not see dollar for dollar. So it's just, those are just some challenges that you experience. More questions that you have? Yes,
Do
Judy.
you ever negotiate on your, fee for someone who has an interest in trying to sell the house on their own, where, we talked to one agent years ago, and she was willing to do some of the advertising, and we were gonna do open houses. Do you ever do that?
I think it's all, specific with the real estate
So you
agent,
just
is what you
talk to-
negotiate, yes. I think most real estate agents would jump at the chance to have an open house versus having the homeowner do it.
Yes.
So then the prospective buyers are talking to that neutral party versus the owner of the home, but it's all negotiable based on the real estate agent that you work with.
Good, good question.
Well, and consider that selling the house is not just putting it on advertising. But selling the house is, once you're under contract, you found somebody who is gonna guide you into the whole paperwork. Are they presenting you a legal, are you gonna hire a lawyer to interpret the offer that they're making? Now, a real estate agent knows how to navigate. What is an offer? We have access to already legal documents that we can navigate, easily. But if somebody, even as an agent, when somebody comes in and said, well, I don't have an agent, I wanna buy the house by myself, so here's my offer. I cannot interpret that because I'm not a lawyer. So then I have to tell to my seller, and they said, well, we're gonna have to hire a lawyer so they can see this paper, what kind of things. So how are you as a, home seller gonna navigate through all of that? It's gonna give you more stress, and maybe you are dealing with stuff that you don't know, and then at the end it's gonna hurt you, because then they're gonna come back and say, well, now you owe me this much money, or now you have to do this repairs because my contract said this, and you just signed yes. So, all of those things, that the selling the house is not putting a sign and saying, oh, we're gonna get all these people to your house. It's the whole process, and avoid all the stress and avoid all of the tricks that people might have out there until you're in the closing table and everybody is signing happy. So it's not just, the agent is gonna make some publicity and that's their job and that's done. It's
I
the
do
whole
know that.
process, yeah.
I've actually sold 4 houses, but I have a lawyer every single time.
Oh, great, yes, yeah.
Any other questions from our panelists?
Question. If I'm gonna be moving in a year or 2 years, and assuming that I get an inspection for mold and all that other stuff we talked about before, is it worthwhile me getting all the rooms in the house painted and putting carpet in? Because the 3 or 4 houses that have sold recently in our neighborhood, the first thing that people do is basically gut them. And so, do I need to go through the expense of painting everything, or should I just let them take care of that when they move in?
I think sometimes if you can, as a homeowner, neutralize the home with paint, that's a very lower cost expense, right? Of, I'm gonna paint the room so then a buyer can, cause a lot of, you're competing sometimes with new construction, that's all neutral colors. So I think painting is a good option, and that's something that's very reasonable.
Okay.
So what I would do is sit down with you and we would look at, like, what did sell in your neighborhood, I'd look in the pictures and see what they sold and what they sold for. And then I would also then look at what other buyers may be looking at that price point. Can they even get new construction at that price point? So there's a lot of looking at different perspectives, but that's kind of what I would do.
Okay.
And then I'd advise you from there, are there other things we could do?
Cause you don't want the buyer to be distracted, you want the buyer to visually see their things in your home, right? And so, I went through a house a couple of months ago, and the husband was very ill and he couldn't leave the house. And so the wife created a room for him with wallpaper of Las Vegas. Because he loved going to Las Vegas, right? And she had it was like the Las Vegas Strip was in this bedroom, right? But it was distracting to a buyer. A buyer walked in and that's all that they saw. So, but it was the emotional attachment of this is where her husband lived and this is what she did to make him happy. And that was a really difficult moment, right? And so, but in order to advise and support her, we have to talk through taking down the wallpaper and painting it a neutral color so then buyers can visually see themselves in that room. So that's it, there is that emotional piece of it, but looking at it from when you are looking at a home, how neutral can it be so people can visualize themselves in the home?
It's a lot of navigating, for sure.
Do you guys have the software? My aunt passed away in California, and they were able to take pictures of the rooms with their furniture, and it was all electronic. It wasn't real
Yeah.
furniture.
Yes.
You guys have that
We do,
ability?
we do.
Okay.
We do. And just like as many realtors as there are of us out there, we all have different opinions of it.
Oh.
I will just be transparent. I am a huge fan of staging, whether it's with the homeowners items or bringing in some alternating pieces, pre-packing, deep cleaning. Pictures are great at getting them into the home, which is great. But we want an offer, and so if we can help them fall in love with the home while they're there, that's where the offer comes from. So I do like to pretty them up.
And there's a new law actually in the state of California, and it's going across the country, that if you virtually stage a listing, you have to disclose specifically what was changed in the room, and you have to show a picture of the original picture.
Oh, okay.
So you will start seeing a lot of, if you're looking at listings in Indianapolis or Zionsville or in our marketplace, you will start seeing a picture of the empty room and the picture of the virtual staged room.
Yeah.
Because it's all about transparency, because if it's virtually staged, it might give an impression that it might be different when a buyer, so it's all about transparency with
Okay.
that. But it does help get people to visualize, oh, that's where the couch would be.
Well, we had Betsy, on her listing, she put the picture, the online picture of the staged furniture where the buyers could see it when they came in. So we kind of thought through that. It was an empty unstaged house. We staged it online with the photographs, and we put the picture in the house so they could still see that when they come in. Yeah, transparency. And the pictures online are what get people to the door, but when they're in the house, they're gonna love it or hate it. And so we really want it to look nice when they're there.
It's true about what you said, though, when you go through the house, the first impression, and the gentleman's question about the carpet and the painting. I remember going through some homes where the bedrooms were bright red.
Yeah.
You never forget that, and you don't buy the house.
Right, and
It's
it
just kind
isn't
of like the more
easy.
neutral, the better.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend, she's like, I'm not painting my walls, but when the offers did not come in, guess what she did?
And make sure when you are talking to a real estate professional, you talk to them about photography. You wanna make sure they're using a professional photographer and they're not just there on their cell phone, right? You wanna make sure that they're using a professional
I'm
photographer
like, really? It makes us all look bad when someone's using their cell phone.
and they're like in the mirror in the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Right.
You've seen those pictures, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that for any Century 21 Sheets
No
listings, right?
carpet lids up either, so.
I usually say, I can smell that picture.
Yeah. Great. You have some amazing experts in this room, so please please stop by and visit them, pick their brains, get their phone numbers in your phones for when you need them. There are articles in the backs of the room, please stop by. I kept the article from last month of where to take things. Not many got picked up, so there are true articles back where Betsy's standing. So stop by and get those, talk to your people. And I wanted to let you know that we are gonna be here for another year. It is in April, going to move to 2:00, every month at 2:00. Same second Monday of the month at 2:00. You can now go on the website, yoursilverjourney.com, and up at the top, there's a tab for the words next year's list of seminars that you can start looking at, seeing which ones you wanna come to. We are starting a second seminar because of John. He helped me see early on that children of aging parents also need a time to ask questions, build community, share stories. So we are starting a second seminar series the third Tuesday at 4:30. That is also on the website, so right next to it.
Yeah.
So great things coming along, and I thank you all for your feedback on the blue sheets before you leave. You can sign up